My neighbor Karen destroyed my fence, called the cops on me, and tried to get me arrested for trespassing on my own property. But what she didn't know, I was about to make her regret everything. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? And have you ever dealt with a Karen like this? Tell us your craziest neighbor story below. I had just finished repainting my wooden fence, a fresh shade of oak brown, when the nightmare began. Karen, my entitled neighbor, who had always found new ways to make my life miserable, decided that today was the day she would take things to a new level. It started with a loud crash, a sound so jarring that I dropped my paintbrush mid-stroke. I turned to see my fence, my newly painted, meticulously maintained fence, toppled over like a set of dominoes. And there, standing triumphantly with a smug look on her face, was Karen. That ugly thing was an eyesore, she declared, crossing her arms as if she had done the entire neighborhood a favor. My jaw clenched. Karen, what the hell are you doing? I demanded, stepping closer to inspect the damage. The post had been deliberately kicked in, though it splintered at the base. Oh, don't act so dramatic, she scoffed, waving her manicured hand. Your fence was 2 inches over the property line. I was just correcting your mistake. My fists curled at my sides. I had gone through the HOA process, had my property surveyed, and had even gotten approval for this very fence. But Karen, being Karen, operated under belief that if she didn't like something, it didn't deserve to exist. You're paying for this, I seethed, taking out my phone to document the damage. Oh no, dear, she said with a venomous smirk, stepping back toward her own yard. You're the one trespassing now. And you know what? Her eyes gleamed with malicious delight. I think I'll call the cops. My brain short-circuited for a moment, unable to process the level of audacity I was witnessing. You're calling the cops on me? On my own property? Karen didn't answer. Instead, she whipped out her phone, dialed 911, and put on an Oscar-worthy performance. Yes, hello? There's a dangerous man trespassing on my property. He's being aggressive and threatening me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I glanced around at my own yard, the remnants of my fallen fence scattered at my feet. Was I in some twisted alternate reality? Karen's voice rose in fake distress. Yes, he's shouting at me. He's holding something in his hand. She was looking at my phone. I think it might be a weapon. My stomach dropped. Karen, in all her entitled madness, was actively trying to get me arrested. I barely had time to process what was happening before the wail of sirens filled the air. Within minutes, 2 squad cars pulled up, their lights flashing as officers stepped out, hands hovering near their holsters. Drop the weapon, one of them shouted. What? I sputtered, holding up my phone. This is my phone. Karen, standing safely behind the officers, burst into dramatic sobs. He threatened me. He was screaming at me and brandishing something. One of the officers cautiously stepped closer, eyeing me warily. Sir, put the phone down and keep your hands where we can see them. I swallowed hard, carefully lowering my phone. I live here, I said, voice tight. This is my property. She's the one who knocked down my fence. The officer exchanged a glance with his partner before turning to Karen. Ma'am, did you damage this fence? It was illegally placed, Karen sniffled, dabbing at her dry eyes. I was just reclaiming my property. I could see the officer struggling to process the absurdity of the situation. Do you have proof of ownership? One of them asked. Of course. I marched toward my porch, but Karen shrieked as if I had pulled out a knife. See, he's charging at me. Ma'am, the officer said, exasperated. He's going to get paperwork. Or a gun, Karen insisted, clutching her pearls like she was in a 1950s soap opera. I could feel my blood pressure skyrocketing as I retrieved the documents from my mailbox, proof that the fence was built within my property lines. The officers examined them, their expressions shifting from suspicion to irritation as they realized Karen had wasted their time. Ma'am, the lead officer sighed, turning to Karen. This fence was built legally. You had no right to knock it down. Karen's face twisted in rage. What? You're taking his side? We're taking the side of the law, the officer replied dryly. Which, by the way, you broke. This is destruction of property. The shift in Karen's demeanor was instant. Wait, she stammered, her tone switching from righteous fury to nervous backpedaling. You mean he's not getting arrested? No, ma'am, the officer said, unimpressed. But you might be if the homeowner decides to press charges. Karen's face paled. I folded my arms, staring her down. Oh, I'm pressing charges. The officers took my statement. took photos of the wreck fence, and informed Karen that she could be looking at fines or even misdemeanor charges. As they left, she turned to me, seething. "You think you've won?" she hissed. "This isn't over." I smirked. "Oh, Karen, I'm counting on it." Because now I was ready to fight back. And I had a feeling this was just the beginning. Just when I thought things couldn't get more ridiculous, I received an official-looking envelope from the HOA. I tore it open, my stomach already sinking, and sure enough, a formal citation for excessive yard debris and a fine of $500. My first thought? What yard debris? I had just cleaned up the wreckage from my fence after Karen destroyed it. The timing was too perfect, and I knew exactly who was behind this. Karen had found a new way to attack, not with brute force, but with paperwork. I wasn't even given time to breathe before another notice showed up the next morning, this time citing me for an unapproved structure on my property. The structure in question? My tool shed. The same shed that had been standing in my backyard for over 5 years without a single complaint. I stormed down to the HOA office, demanding to know what was going on, and was greeted by none other than the HOA president, Barbara, who looked far too amused for my liking. "Oh, Mr. Last Name," she said, in that overly sweet yet condescending tone that made my skin crawl. "It seems there have been quite a few concerns about your property lately." "Concerns?" I echoed flatly, crossing my arms. "From who?" Barbara's smile didn't waver, but I saw the glint of something smug in her eyes. "Oh, we don't disclose complainants. But rest assured, the HOA is just doing its due diligence." "Yeah, right." I spent the next week battling a bureaucratic onslaught of nonsense. Every single day, another notice, another fine, another vague violation with Karen's fingerprints all over it. The mailbox incident, I was accused of having an unsightly mailbox. My driveway, suddenly in need of a mandatory reseal. My lawn, apparently a half-inch too high, per anonymous complaints. It was textbook Karen, petty, relentless, and completely absurd. But this was where she made her mistake. Karen overplayed her hand. She was so obsessed with making my life miserable that she got sloppy. She forgot that HOA rules applied to her, too. One evening, after yet another bogus fine for improperly stored garbage bins, which were literally in the designated bin area, I decided I'd had enough. It was time to fight fire with fire. First, I attended the next HOA meeting. Normally, these were Karen's playground, where she bullied and manipulated the board into getting her way. But I had done my homework. I had evidence. I brought a folder packed with photos, timestamps, and records of her violations. One she had conveniently ignored while harassing me. "Before we continue," I said, standing up in the middle of the meeting, "I'd like to discuss some community concerns." I pulled out my first document and handed it to the board. "This is Karen's fence, not mine, violating height restrictions by a full foot." Karen's smug expression faltered. I handed over another paper. "This is Karen's illegal patio extension, built without approval." Murmurs rippled through the room. "And here," I continued, pulling out my trump card, "is a photo of Karen leaving her trash bins out for 3 days straight, a violation that I, somehow, got fined for." Karen's face turned beet red. The HOA board looked at each other, clearly realizing they had backed the wrong horse. Barbara, for the first time, actually looked uncomfortable. "Well, we, take all complaints seriously," she stammered. "Good," I said, slapping down the final paper, "because I filed formal complaints on all of these violations. And since you've been so diligent about finding me, I'm sure you'll want to enforce these with the same enthusiasm." Checkmate. Karen exploded. She went from shocked silence to screeching like a tea kettle. "This is harassment," she shrieked, slamming her hand on the table. "He's targeting me. This is a setup." The HOA president cleared her throat nervously. "Now, Karen, we apply the rules fairly." "No, you don't," I interrupted. "Because if you did, these fines wouldn't be only against me. But now that the whole neighborhood can see what's going on," I gestured to the other homeowners, who were now whispering and nodding in agreement. That's when I saw it. Karen's control slipping. She had always relied on manipulating the system behind closed doors. But now everyone was watching. And the HOA, realizing they'd been publicly exposed, had no choice but to act. The board begrudgingly agreed to rescind my fines and investigate Karen's violations. And Karen? She was fined for every single rule she had broken. Her face was priceless. But this wasn't over yet. Karen was livid. She stormed out of the meeting, but not before throwing one final threat over her shoulder. You're going to regret this, she hissed. Oh, Karen, I was counting on it. Because this fight wasn't just about some fines anymore. Now it was war. If Karen had a signature move, it was playing dirty. But this time, she decided to ditch the fake official complaints and go straight into stealth warfare.